Welcome students. In the second lecture of paper 4 Spermatophyta and Paleobotany, today we are going to discuss the fossils, in which the fossils, its definition, process of fossil formation, types of fossils, in which impression, compression, petrification, pith cast and coal balls we are going to study in detail. Now, fossil is the word derives from Latin verb means to dig, and it means the dug up. Process of fossil form is depend on the material in which it is preserved at the ancient environment. They also represent organism movement and activity in the form of footprints and boring holes. Then we must know how the fossils are formed. As we know, there are ideal conditions for fossilization where mineral rich sediments in a low temperature environment. That's why the fossils are rare. Different steps are involved for the process of fossil formation, or they contribute to the formation of fossils, and these are mineralization, carbonization, encrustation and distillation. And this whole process is depend on mineral composition of silt and the water where the material get buried up. Then let's have a look on these steps in detail. In the first step, mineralization, there is water within the sediment which contains minerals slowly replace the tissues of original living organisms, where maximum minerals like calcium carbonate, iron sulfide, iron carbonate, calcium phosphonate and silica are involved. Another step of a process of fossil formation is carbonization require certain bacteria, and they creates anaerobic environment which is devoid of oxygen, as you are familiar with the anaerobic respiration, and this bacteria turns plant life into the carbon. So this distillation process in which carbon film are formed, but this is of rare occurrence and give a fine image of soft tissues. But by process of distillation, tissues are badly preserved. In the encrustation type of process of fossil formation, it occurs in presence of minerals like calcium carbonate, which get deposited in various layers on top of the remains of an organism. As the tide rises and fall of water level fluctuate, minerals slowly form a mold, and in mineralization there is a replacement of organic matter and encrustation covers it. It is important to note that mineralization will form a cast and encrustation results into the mold. Actually, the fossils that are found are not the animals or plants at all. They are the remains begin to decay within the sediments, and the spaces which once remains after deterioration are the minerals. They hardens and makes the impression of animal or plant, and whatever is left is known as fossil. Fossil types are grouped according to the process in which they are formed or the evidence they have left behind. As we know, the method by which fossils are formed is termed as a fossilization. Let's have a detailed study of 5 types of fossils: impression, compression, petrification, pith cast, and coal balls. We go for impression. It is nothing but the impression where any organic part falling on semi-stiff clay leaves an impression on its surface. It means it shows only external appearance of that plant, and in the course of time they become permanent and that clay turns into the stone. They shows details like venation as well as the sometimes structure of somata are clearly seen in good preparations. Many of the times they are darker color than the surface of a rock below because it very often retains some of the organic material. This is the Nephrolepis leaf impression on the stone, where you can observe the boundaries of leaf outlines as well as the venation. Then the next type is compression. Here, some or the entire organism is left behind as an imprint, where organism is slowly compressed between the sediment layers. Compression fossils are often distorted in condition. One of the best example of compression is coal, which we are using as a fossil fuel. It is a combination of fallen vegetation on the hypoxic swamp land over a course of approximately million years, and we know it is a source of fuel energy. Here a clay nodule splits open of Lepidostrobus cone. Then the third type, that is a petrifaction, or it's also known as the petrification, where replacement of an original remains with very specific minerals. Remember here replacement of what? Organic remain with very specific minerals, and here organism components are replaced by minerals like calcium carbonate, silicon dioxide, iron sulfide, and so on. So this petrifaction or petrification is also known as a mineralization, as this type is the result of mineral deposition. Okay, here as the tissues of the dead or buried organism dissolves, the gaps left behind and these cavities are filled up by the minerals. But in petrifaction, soft tissues are less well preserved. as compared to the hard tissue. In the next slide, we will have a look on a petrified forest in Arizona that contains stone-like tree stumps. It is the result of original tissue being replaced with crystallized minerals. These are the beautiful petrified trees from the Arizona, where only that minerals get deposited, and it shows you are the petrified trees. Then the pith cast is the common type of fossil in which plant part get covered up by sand or the mud. And here this cavity filled up by rock containing material. After a period of time, inside as well as the outside, there is a formation of solidified stone, which is the external part that peeled off, leaving exact cast of plant material, showing all its surface features. A simple example for the pith cast is today we are many of the times we are using clay or plaster of Paris molds. This is cast of Stigmaria, where the details are well shown. And the last part of the type of fossil, that are the coal balls. It is a concretion, and these coal balls, as these are the balls, they vary in shape from imperfect sphere to flat lying, or sometimes they are irregular slab. They formed in Carboniferous period when peat was prevented from being turned into the coal by the high amount of calcite surrounding the pit, and this calcite caused turned into the stone. These are not made up of coal. They are, that's why, non-inflammable and useless for the fuel. In other words, coal balls are calcium rich permineralized life forms, and most of the times they contain calcium, magnesium carbonate, pyrites and the quartz. Here this permineralized plant remains. It is very small in size, but coal balls sometimes they are as huge as human being. And this term was first reported by J.D. Hooker and Binney for the first time. So this is all about what are the fossils. Fossils are the remains of the past. Then process of fossil formation, in which the different steps like mineralization, carbonification, distillation are involved, and the types of fossils, that is impression, compression, petrifaction or petrification, pith cast and coal balls, we have studied in detail. Now, last but not the least, why there is a need to study the fossil record. It gives us evidence about the history of life on the earth, and we will also familiar with how different groups of organisms and species changed over the time. And this time period is studied in geological time scale that we are going to discuss in the next lecture. Thank you. We will meet in the next week. Thank you.